physician-computer company. PCC empowers independent pediatricians, streamlining daily operations and improving financial stability. A trusted pediatric partner for 40 years, we offer award-winning support, personalized training, seamless data transitions, and practice analytics. With inclusive pricing, a lively peer community, and a free annual users conference, you can focus on what matters the most, your patients. Explore more at pcc.com. That is pcc.com. Good afternoon, George. Happy solar eclipse. Happy birthday. I'm glad you're now drinking age. And today we have a phenomenal guest with us, a classmate of medical school.
Yes, my dear friend, Dr. Calin Drimarean. We went to medical school together back in the day, really back in the day. And his topic of discussion is going to be around about anesthesia and the maternity hospital. It worked well until it didn't.
So Dr. Kalin graduated from medical school with Dr. George Andele Rogu in Romania. He followed his footsteps as his father's in could no longer support the level of care anesthesia. And welcome to the show, Kalin. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you. I'm on.
Thank you. Kalin, why not pediatrics?
Well, it's hard to say. So when I first started my training in the United States, I started with family practice. So I got to get an introduction how different fields of medicine are practiced here, which is a little different from way back in Romania. And I was attracted by the intensity of anesthesia.
Your father was an obstetrician in Romania. I imagine he's retired at this point.
Retired about 15 years ago. And we many times disagreed on way things are done in obstetrics. He believed that, a well-conducted labor by the obstetrician is so comfortable that the woman doesn't even need an epidural, for opinion with which I strongly disagree. And I assume most women.
So about 70% of pediatricians are women. So I'm sure that on the show, he would not be a welcome guest in that regard. And
right.
Did you do many deliveries with your dad in Romania?
So actually, I didn't do any deliveries with my dad in Romania. I wrote as a medical student. I saw him work, but it wasn't a co-working relationship. It was, medical student and, full-fledged doctor relationship. So no, we actually did not work together.
Did you think you would be an obstetrician when you were going through, like before you entered medical school and while you were in medical school in Romania?
No, when I entered medical school, I didn't know what specialty I wanted to do. And I had no idea what I'd be doing. As I progressed through medical school, I was attracted by fields. I considered being a surgeon, and actually few months that for the United States, I was in a surgical program.
Yeah. How was it when you came to the United States in those days? You had to study?
Honestly, it was a big shock. It was a big shock. Culture was very exciting.
Yeah, back in those days, Herb, you don't know this story, but Kalin and I were in the same class, right? It was a funny story. I got to tell this, Kalin. I've told it before. Where he came in, he actually did 3 years of pediatrics, the medical school, general meds and the pediatric medicine. It was like its own medical school.
There are two different tracks, yes.
Yeah. So he was on the pediatric track, right? And in the third year, he transferred into medicine. So there's this beginning. I remember it was a surgical class that we were learning. And it was like in those big old school amphitheaters with the big wooden desk and the chairs and just going up like in the movies in the 50s. Yeah. Kalin was all the way in the top row and I was all the way at the bottom. That's how I met him. And so you had this professor that's given this lecture about surgery. And the guy is reading word for word from his notes, word for word. It was like so boring. And then he went out for lunch. He took a break and he went out of the room for a little bit. There goes Kalin from the top row, stepping on the desk all the way down to the podium, takes the guy's papers, mixes them all up, and climbs back up to the top row where he couldn't be incriminated. I said, "Oh boy, that's a cool guy. I gotta meet this guy."
in that.
She was next to me. We all were like in the same clique. So that's where we all became friends with him.
She didn't.
We were good students. And the guy came back and then he started reading. He started reading from the thing and it didn't make any medical sense. And he got all agitated. He just like stormed out and sent everybody home. Did you ever get in trouble for that? You probably should have.
Nobody snitched. No.
In a communist country, communist regime, that probably could have been grounds for expulsion.
Or hanging in the backyard.
But we all became friends after that.
Now,
Takes to become friends with Dr. Rogu.
well, I mean, I've only done it for 2 years. You've done it for more than 2 years, and I'm already
Very resilient. I'm very resilient.
a guest in the Rogu basement.
No, I was in the basement next door.
We actually,
Next door.
we came back from medical school. So Delia and I came back first.
Wait till the children that you guys were married already when you were living in the basement.
Yes, we were living in the basement together because we were married. He was single. I get a phone call from this guy if I could pick him up. He hung out. We had a place to stay and, and then we studied together. Remember, we used to go to Queens College Library and study every day.
Yeah.
And remember the day when we both passed the USMLE, we were like wetting in our pants to open up that envelope of the results. He opened mine and I opened his. Yeah.
How did you have a phone number to reach him back then? There were no cell phones.
Only landlines.
Only landlines. How did you have the number?
So somehow I think we wrote to each other and for his phone number, and that's that's how things happen.
Yeah. You looks at the airports when I would be traveling, like I would be in New York and I'd be like, oh, I wonder if I can find George Rogu. And I looked through for the phone books in the airport while I was waiting for my layover, find the number, go to hey, it's Herb. Is this you or George?
I don't know how we survived without cell phone. I remember that George was the coolest student in the year, and because he was driving the coolest car in town. He had a 2-door Renault Fuego. That was really, really hot, and he was, quite the guy with that car. Everybody knew him. Yeah.
What was the Renault Fuego look like?
It was a 2-door.
Was it bare bones? Because in Colombia,
similar to it's more sporty than that.
Had a little bit more sporty than that.
Yeah.
Quite the looker. It was. I don't know how the engine was, but the design was.
It was terrible.
Do you remember having a 4-cylinder engine like 1200 or 1400?
I don't remember.
How many hamburgers did you guys smuggle into Romania?
He wasn't the one. He wasn't the guy.
He wasn't involved in the smuggling.
Let's go back to the medical part.
Well, this is more fun. So then after you came to
I think we were at a generation where you did both.
It was during the transition. Yeah.
And did you do a transitional internship in America before going to anesthesia?
So I started the residency in family medicine, and I came late into the system, the mat, and I could. And after it was a lucky way to start my career in medicine doing family practice because I got to see the major specialties, actually, do them a little bit as a resident and then to pursue anesthesia, which was perfect because in anesthesiology, medicine, surgery, obstetrics or pediatrics. And just after that, you do anesthesiology. So it worked perfectly. And after my first year of family practice in Queens, New York, I started my residency in anesthesiology on Long Island at Stony Brook. Residency, I decided to do a fellowship in Manhattan, New York.
I don't know anything about obstetric anesthesia. Is it mostly epidural or the emergency C-sections?
Anesthesia, it's focused on the pregnant mother and the baby, right? So to me, it looked like a very happy field. The vast majority of the time, you deal with happy outcomes. Everybody's happy. So I liked that. Yes. So basically, when you do obstetric anesthesia, you deal with 2 patients, the mother and the fetus, soon to become a baby, right? And you're concerned about the well-being of both of them. And as I said, most of the time there are happy outcomes, and it's very rewarding to be involved in the process of bringing a baby to the world. So once you expect a healthy baby, the pediatricians are there for assessment, but many times if you deal with complications, prenatal complications, the neonatal team will be involved even before. So yes, I did like Providence. It's very intense, but as I said, I found it very rewarding.
Is there, because from a pediatrics, most general pediatricians now, we don't attend C-sections or routine deliveries, or a lot of us aren't even welcome in nurseries. But is there a lot of liability?
Luckily, I wasn't named in any shoot. The maternal mortality, particularly became safer and safer. Mortality hasn't changed. I've been involved in medical negligence. It was just, bad luck.
Yeah, I just read the other in Chicago, a mother who had sent a tour, right? And the baby had some birth injuries. She just got a settlement. The baby eventually died at 4 years, $14 million from the University of Chicago. $14 million.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the beginning of a new life and such a happy. I have the pediatrician, which is one of these is going to blow up, outcome. And I don't want to be in the room when to me, OB was very stressful, very stressful. I delivered 60 babies in Costa Rica, but it was very stressful because any given second,
it's a numbers game, because it was also a referral center for pregnant NICU. So I did see a lot. I was warned before the specialty that it's going to be a high risk specialty, but you're right. Probably I was optimistic. I still chose.
We talk a lot about burnout. Was it hard emotionally?
It is always hard. It's heartbreaking. I don't think I got burnt out because,
it's a dream, right? Like I talk about this a lot. I mean, I admire when they have a dream, they have to find a partner, and they go into the delivery room with the hope that they're going to have this baby. That then sometimes they've been dreaming about since and then something doesn't go right. And it has to be devastating. The emotional has to be devastating. Very hard to win. You are at a really hospital and it only did maternity, right?
The obstetrics and gynecology, yes.
And I think you told me when we had dinner together that you guys did over 10,000 deliveries a year.
So when I started around we were doing about 10,000 deliveries.
Wow.
So over 25 years.
A lot of deliveries.
And how often were you on call?
On average, once a week.
And how big was the anesthesia team then?
The doctors at the peak of the department were about 11 doctors.
You were on call, you didn't sleep.
You got to sleep 3 hours in a row. That happened in a year. It was very.
And then as the landscape of maternity has been a change of 50% of 40% of expectant, and we're having less babies. So your volume dropped and the revenue for the hospital started dropping. And then they weren't able to afford the anesthesia. And I think you told me over dinner, even towards the later years, the level 4 NICU was having some trouble staying in.
So there's a very large NICU department. When I joined, it used to be 15 years ago, they built a new wing. They built it with 80. So it became suddenly a very modern unit. And it used to be always in the black, always a money maker for the hospital. They're very good. I think the only thing that in Providence, in conjunction with our neighboring hospital, Hasbro, on here was ECMO. Aside from ECMO, I think they were handling almost everything. And as I said, it used to be after the pandemic, when they actually turned busier than usual, they realized that the pay for the NICU changed. And given that 20% busier than usual, I think though that the Medicaid insured
pediatrics all over the place, but it's affecting also maternity, obstetricians, anesthesia, expectant mothers, maternity hospitals. There's a bunch of maternity hospitals closing around the country because they cannot maintain the doors open with the payer mix. That must have been very sad for you after so many years of dedication to the institution and to delivering the babies to come to a point where it was no longer something that you wanted to do.
Actually, that was a different issue. It was, partially it was the insurance reimbursement for our group. We were an independent group. We were only a private group. But what happened, I think it's related to the bigger changes in the mindset of the neuro physicians. So, as we mentioned before, our nights were very busy, always expected to work. And we had trouble attracting new physicians as the original members of the group started retiring. We had trouble attracting new physicians who did not want to spend all their nights up doing obstetrics. In anesthesiology, obstetrics is not on people easily. Obstetrics get shared group, but here we're this small group that were only doing obstetrics and gynecology, and you had to do for the last several years, we weren't able to attract any of them because none of them liked it that much to commit to. So it was a problem that I think it's all over medicine. People expect to have a better life balance. They don't want to work during the night. Sometimes doesn't matter the pay, life balance. So reimbursement that working up with the needs was one, no matter the income, integrating business and medical model. And yes, in order to be very efficient, on average, we probably had 25 deliveries and they could happen sometimes an hour and or not. So things had to move really fast and being a private group, what do, and we got very organized specialties. So we asked nurses that talk to the patients before, spoke with the patient with a good clinical picture of the mother, and things were working very smoothly and efficient. So all was done within minutes of asking, and the actual placing it took also really, really short time because we were very, very specialized.
It reminds me of a model that I looked at 20 years ago. There's a hospital in Canada that only does and the whole team is focused on inguinal hernias, and everybody does the work. They have some of the best outcomes in the world. Procedure, anesthesia follow the same procedure. The post-op recovery is the same. And interestingly, they keep them like in a hotel for 2 weeks after because they found out that the problem is people don't get up fast enough, and then that's where they get the complications. So it's not a hospital, but they have people there to get you up. Sounds like you had done the same thing, just the same procedures over and over again. Super great at it.
Right. We were very small in our group.
So you were a desirable group, it seems. Wappy.
It was difficult because we couldn't, from 11, we ended up being 6 because of the retirements and the inability to bring in new people. And at some point we told the we aren't able to attract anybody because, nobody wants to do this kind of work that much. And they supported us for a while financially, but still it was enough to attract anybody. And then at some point we said, we cannot do that. We cannot continue doing it like this. And there has to bring some other group in. And the group for next, the hospital was about 50 anesthesiologists came in and, they brought in new people. Weren't necessarily that excited come and do obstetrics, but as I said, being a bigger group,
you had anesthesia residents.
That's correct. Yes.
It's kind of stated in my mind that you share 2 things. One, that you would tell your nursing staff for a certain case, do not wake up the resident, wake me up because it's going to be a disaster.
No. So after midnight, I've told the nurses not to call the resident because whenever, you try to teach to do an epidural, it takes, an epidural can take 20 minutes, half an hour. And depending on the residents, it could be painful even to watch. So after midnight, I did not have the patience of watching, fresh resident trying to do an epidural and a comfortable mother. Probably after midnight, I just did that myself, and everybody was happy. So my my teaching wasn't that after midnight. Nobody had the patient happy with that decision.
Well, and then so different from the way I was trained, right? After 6 p.m., all the attendings left and there was no one else in the building.
So you have to supervise residents whenever they do something. And teaching is, I think it's a passion, is a gift, and takes dedication. Maybe I didn't have those qualities after midnight. So it was, I have to say, it was maybe selfish too for my 20 minutes to do something that you can do in 5 minutes. So, my patience wasn't the same at 3 a.m. in the morning.
I don't think anybody's is. And then you had another observation, which is very interesting. You said that the new anesthesia residents' social skills were not, they were not up to speed.
So I don't know. Right. I don't know. I made that observation if it was this program in particular. So a lot, you never knew what's going on behind their eyes. It wasn't a medical issue. They were just funny personalities, funny, not in a good way. They're like odd social beings.
Like Elon Musk. Genius at what they do, but
maybe there are geniuses that didn't perspire through, but quite a few of them, not the specialties, but I don't know if the specialty attracts. It's just some of them were.
But don't you think that, so for example, I would think that if you go into radiology, it's because you don't really want to talk to a lot of people. You like the dark room.
So for me, it's hard to say. It's definitely probably it's a degree of self-selection, probably, but I don't know. I don't remember my fellow residents when I trained to be that odd, but also it's a different experience. When you're a resident, you experience your colleagues kind of in a horizontal way. When you're in a supervising position, you see things differently, kind of from above. So I don't know if experience as a resident myself was different, the people different at the time, or not. Right answer is.
I found that observation fascinating because I think George and I don't know, I want to speak for George, but I think I see it in the exam room today. Parents come in and they won't, it's not even the kids, the parents won't drop their cell phone to talk about what's going on with their kid. And I feel like an old man. Please put your cell phone away so that we can have a conversation. Because what's the purpose of bringing your kid if you're going to be texting and looking at pictures on Instagram? Well, we're talking about your kid's health. They look to put my cell phone away. Yeah, that's what people do. When they go out to dinner, they put their cell phones away. When they go talk to their lawyer, they put their cell phones away. When they go talk to their accountant, they put their cell phones away. When they come in to talk to the doctor, they put their cell phones away so we can, use the time to have a conversation and meet your needs. So maybe it's just generational.
Actually, sometimes I watch my coworkers, you go into the break room, there are a bunch of them and all of them are on their phones. Doesn't matter the age. It's like you deal with a bunch of grown-up teenagers, all of them on their phones. I don't know if it's a generation or it's the times.
Yeah. I think it's the times.
Their noses are on the phone.
Well, it's unfortunately has become all a transactional thing. I'm here to get something from you, a prescription, a shot, a letter, or something. Mm-hmm. And we become like the inconvenience to them because we're in the way of their thing. But I think it's also starting with, we had the medical students, right? When they start the rotation, I can get them trained on the EHR within a matter of 1 hour. They're so good at this. They're really good at the computer stuff. They're really good at, technology and things. But they're really, really all bad at the beginning at the doctor thing, the talking, the relationship with the people. So after I get them live on the computer, I tell them, leave the computer, talk to people, look at the people, engage with the people, write later. By the end of the month, they actually get it. Do they carry this on moving forward? I don't know. They graduate, but hopefully they will.
I noticed by working with residents for the last several years of my career is uh, I realized that you can teach skills, but you cannot teach personality. And if I was looking to hire somebody, I think probably the ability to interact socially was the first thing that I was looking for. And the skills, as I said, I think I can teach somebody something, interact with other people.
So I think that, showing up wins the game. And then the attitude with which you show up is what wins the game. Like you said, all the other skills can be taught, but
The attitude, it cannot be taught to come from within.
yeah. So, showing up and having a great attitude is what wins the game. And I don't think that lesson is being taught in K through 12 colleges or medical schools. And so we don't get, we get people that are very smart, but don't want to show up to work and they don't have the right attitude or existence. So what else do you want to share with us? Be generous with your time today.
I don't know. What does the audience want to?
Profession. When you started, I remember back then, you got into family medicine, family practice. And that was the hot career at that time.
It was just
Beginning.
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you flipped to anesthesia. And that was the time when anesthesia was like nobody wanted to touch anesthesia. But then it started to shoot back up again. Medicine changes every 10, 15 years. Something becomes fashionable. So anesthesia seems to be very, very fashionable now. I wonder why, because a lot of the students are going into anesthesia. Most of them are.
I think what's going on is the times, right? So people, even in medicine, I feel like they want to have a workload that they know what it's, a degree offers, the duties or whatever. Usually you're done. When I started, there were quite a few of the independent obstetricians, 7 days a week, and practices disappeared. All these independent obstetricians that became part of the real large ones. I think there was only one old timer who was practicing the old fashioned way by himself, making himself available all the time. So I think it's a change life balance. There's a lot of surgery going on, and once the surgery center closes, everybody's done.
Yeah, and everybody loves the guy or the guy who stops your pain.
Once you make somebody happy within minutes, and then most of the time there is a good outcome with it. The entire family is happy welcoming the new baby. So that part of it, I think it's still there.
Yeah, it's wonderful to solve somebody's pain. It's a really great feeling. It's instant gratification. But also the anesthesiologist, unless they're in a pain clinic, they don't have to hire staff at front desk and office managers and, have this huge business operation that the family practitioner, the pediatrician, the obstetrician, the dermatologist has to never stops. You can stop seeing the patients, not be on call, but you're still worrying about how the bills are going to get paid, how if the cleaning crew got in, if Susie Q is unhappy and she's going to quit the front desk position, all those things.
But I think these things are across anesthesiology. Most of the anesthesiologists are part, but I think that's happening across all the specialties. The independent practitioner or small group doctor group are becoming more corporate, and you'd have to deal with those issues less and less. I think.
But before COVID, this just really opened my eyes to what you're talking about, quality of life. One of the pediatrician's son, radiology. And, radiologists make a lot of money. But like you said, he wanted to be only outpatient, not hospital-based. And he was willing to work for $350 Monday through Friday with 4 weeks vacation a year, no partnership track, but no weekends, no nights, very, very limited call. And I don't need to work for a hospital and have to be on call and have to go out and do a procedure.
Right. That's the same everywhere.
The outpatient surgical center, do, cases, from 7 a.m. till 3, Monday through Friday, and I'm done.
No. What about this CRNA business? How does that work with anesthesiology?
So, it's the CNAs are becoming more and more prevalent, and depending on where you, it's a changing, specialty also. When I think they're becoming more after. There's a little bit of saving, and plus in anesthesiology, there is a little bit of a shortage of personnel. Right. So that's a decision that's hopefully before, but sometimes if you don't have a CRNA, you cannot operate a small surgery center. So you have to pick your poison. There are things that if you don't have a body, doesn't matter who, you cannot do, A lot of CRNAs work in eye centers or education or colonoscopy centers. Sometimes they would like to have a doctor, but they cannot. Sometimes it's
Hospital in Virginia. There's only 40-bed hospital. I was the only pediatrician, and they did have two general surgeons and a visiting ENT and orthopedic surgeon. And they could not afford to have a anesthesiologist. So they used a CRN, two of them, under the supervision of the surgeon. So if something went wrong, the surgeon's responsible for their care. But it's just such a small community that there's just no way they would have ever been able to anesthesiologists to do the work. So, and then in Chicago, at Rush is a huge department, huge anesthesia department. They already use CRNA, but they had a rule, induction, and woke up the patient. The anesthesiologist was in the room. So the CRNA's cases were the more simple cases, and they were just doing the documentation, and the anesthesiologists were around to come in if a complication came in, but nobody got induced without an anesthesiologist at the bedside.
That's usually the rule in the bigger places.
And that seemed to work okay because anesthesia is like, 99% of boredom. You can be, trade dates, if you want, and then 1% of sheer hell.
Yeah.
Everything goes nuts in 1 second. And that's the value of the anesthesiologist, is that 1% that everything goes bad in 1 second. And you better hope that there's a really good anesthesiologist at your bedside with that, because that'll make the difference between your life or you being dead. There's a lot of just charting, come back when you need to be woken up.
Yeah. So Kalin, let's go back to 1993. If it was 1993 again, pre-match, would you pick anesthesiology once again, knowing what you know?
So personally, I have had a good run, and I would probably do it all over again.
That's what I thought. Good answer. Well, probably a lot of kids are listening to this, and I'm happy you would say that, because a lot of people I've seen, after they've had a good run in their career, they say to young doctors, well, don't do pediatrics. Well, don't do this because it's terrible. Don't do that. Don't do that. And it puts a little damper on the outlook of young physicians. So I'm glad you said you would do it again.
I still like what I do. And, with all the downsides, I think I made a good choice. 30.
Yep. Well, it was a pleasure.
I'd love to be on one of those boats.
Sure.
There's a lot of room.
So let's, George, let us know when you want to come, and you can come with your own. You can come with your own art.
Well, definitely.
Yes.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Nice talking to you.